that's why there's been a lot of interest in the closure of South Hilo. Because it is an unlined landfill, there's been a lot of concern on basically getting this landfill closed. So just to talk more about this project, so this is basically what the landfill is going to look like when it's all done. The top elevation will be at 204 feet above sea level. So basically we had to make sure that that met with everything with the airport being adjacent to us, that it wasn't so high that it wasn't going to conflict with anything over at the airport. So we had to go through the FAA to make sure everything was good as far as, you know, the top elevation of this landfill. One of the big issues with closing a landfill is basically how you're going to keep the whole idea on closing a landfill is you're trying to keep any more rainwater from percolating down through the refuse. So essentially what EPA and the state of Hawaii require is to have a impermeable type liner. So we had to incorporate an impermeable type liner with something that wasn't gonna slide down the hill. So when you look at how these types of materials, and these are different for the different types of slopes that they might be on. Yeah, you can pass these around. And then on top of that is actually going to be, it's going to actually look like turf. So it's actually going to look like a grass. And what this does is it actually helps to slow down the rainwater, the flow. And this has been used in other states that have high rainfall, like we do here in East Hawaii. So that was one of the things that we really focused on when we were looking for a system for the closure, was other areas that have high rainfall, you know, and are looking and closing out the landfill. So when it's all done, it's basically going to kind of look like more or less like an AstroTurf kind of thing. So we can pass this around too. So basically what it's going to involve is a certain amount of kind of reshaping the slopes. So once we get all the materials placed, the liner material and the turf, the big question becomes, okay, where's all this water going to go? So what we've done is we've established 3 different basins around the site that will be collecting the rainwater. So really at that point it's just going to be rainwater because it's not going to penetrate through the refuse. So it's really just managing the storm water that's coming off of the site. And obviously we all know we get lots of rain here, so we got to be able to account for that amount. Like, you know, we look at what, you know, like the 50-year, 100-year storm, you know, what's the potential? How much could we get? You know, let's say like hurricane type rains, you know, what could that be? So we want to make sure the design of this is going to accommodate any of those kinds of things. You know, and then the basins themselves are going to be able to absorb that stormwater runoff. So that's kind of, you know, some of the nuts and bolts of what's going to happen with the actual closure of South Hilo. We expect the project overall probably is going to take about a year from the time the contractor gets all the materials, does all the earthwork that they need to do, you know, all the different bulldozer work and everything to shape the thing to accommodate the liner materials, and then, you know, get everything. So there's additional monitoring that they're going to actually do or put in some points for the long-term monitoring. Once we close this, we'll have a minimum of a 30-year post-closure monitoring period. So we'll be monitoring this site for at least 30 years. And really, it could be more than that. It's really a matter of when does State Department of Health say, okay, it appears as though this site has what they call reached stability. So it's no longer essentially a threat. So, but that's typically a minimum of 30-year period. So that's something we have to account for, you know, is that post-closure monitoring period. Once you get to the point where there's really no concerns about, you know, threats to the public from, say, like landfill gas or anything like that. But yeah, no, we're familiar with a lot of different projects where they've taken landfill sites like this and either turned it into some sort of like walking park or you know, could be like just a place to like sightsee, be able to go see a nice view of, you know, Hilo Bay. I mean, I've seen, you know, golf courses developed at old landfill sites. You know, a lot of it is a matter of what's the potential hazard to, you know, the public, you know, from say like the emissions coming out of like landfill gas. As long as you don't have any issues as far as those things, then your usages become wide open. So I'd say there's pretty high probability that this site will get used for some sort of beneficial purpose in the future.
How many years or what kind of timeline is involved with something like that?
Well, you know, it could be 10 years. It could be more than that. You know, it could be less than that. I mean, I guess it really just depends upon what kinds of results we're getting out of once the system's installed, and then we start monitoring it. Then we'll have some data we can draw from, and then we can start looking at what's those. Because if we're not seeing anything, you know, of any concern coming out of the site, it could be, you know, very soon. But, you know, really until you actually get it closed and then you get some data generated from the monitoring we're going to do, it's really tough to make some predictions like that.